This story is titled, My Wife Ditched Me, 2 weeks after our wedding for her ex. Now she wants me to be her backup plan. Hard pass. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Never thought I'd be one of those guys posting about their marriage problems on Reddit, but life's funny like that, I guess. This whole situation is so messed up that I need to get it off my chest, and maybe writing it down will help me process everything that's happened. Fair warning, this is going to be a long post. I, 30 male, was married to Emma, 28 female, for literally just 2 weeks before everything went straight to hell. 2 weeks. Like, we still had wedding gifts sitting unopened in our living room when she decided to blow up our entire life. Still can't believe this is my life, RN. Some background, I guess. I'm a structural engineer, mainly work on skyscrapers and big commercial projects. Been doing this for about 8 years now, and honestly love my job even though the hours can be crazy sometimes. Emma is, IDK, what to call her now, a wildlife veterinarian, which is actually how we met. Kind of a funny story. We had this injured hawk at one of my construction sites, and my site manager called the local wildlife center. Emma shows up in these muddy boots and messy hair, looking completely out of place among all the guys in hard hats. But man, the way she handled that hawk was something else. She was so confident and gentle at the same time, knew exactly what she was doing. We started talking while she was treating the hawk, and I found out she'd just moved to the city. I offered to show her around sometime. Smooth, I know, LOL. And surprisingly, she said yes. That turned into dinner, which turned into more dates. And before I knew it, we'd been together for 3 years. Everything seemed perfect, you know? Like, we had our little arguments about stupid stuff, like whose turn it was to do laundry or me working late, but nothing major. She supported my insane work schedule, had some huge projects going on, and I supported her thing about trying to save every injured animal in a 50-mile radius. Our apartment basically turned into a mini animal hospital sometimes. We had this 3-legged raccoon living in our guest bathroom for a week once, but that's another story. We wanted the same things in life: couple kids down the road, house in the suburbs, dogs, obviously with her job. We even agreed on stupid little things like both hating cilantro and loving true crime documentaries. Looking back now, maybe things were too perfect, if that makes sense. The wedding was exactly what she wanted. This fancy vineyard ceremony that cost me an arm and a leg. Took me like a year to save up for it. But seeing her happy made it worth it. Her dad, who's this scary-looking ex-military guy covered in tattoos, actually started crying walking her down the aisle. Never thought I'd see that dude cry, but there he was. My college buddies all flew in. Even my best friend Kyle, who's been working on this massive project in Dubai for the past 2 years. He actually warned me about some red flags he'd noticed with Emma, but I brushed him off like an idiot. Should have listened to him. But you know what they say about love being blind and all that BS? The ceremony was beautiful, I guess. Emma spent months planning every little detail. The flowers, the music, the special wine we'd ordered from this vineyard we visited on vacation. She even hired this lady to do calligraphy on all the place cards, which cost a fortune. My mom kept saying she'd never seen a more beautiful wedding, but now I'm wondering if she was just being nice. The reception was wild. We had this amazing band that kept everyone dancing all night. Emma's cousins from Australia came and taught everyone some crazy drinking game that had half the wedding party hung over the next day. I remember looking at Emma during our first dance, thinking how lucky I was, and how this was the start of our perfect life together. The honeymoon was in Bali. Took me 6 months of overtime and saving every penny to afford it. But Emma had always dreamed of going there. Got back home and everything seemed great for exactly 14 days. We were still in that honeymoon phase, you know? Still calling each other husband and wife just because we could. Still wearing our rings like they were the most precious things in the world. Emma was even talking about maybe starting to try for a baby next year. Then everything went to shit. 2 weeks after we got back from Bali, I started noticing Emma acting weird. And when I say weird, I mean like completely different person weird. Looking back now, there were so many red flags I ignored like a complete dumbass. First thing I noticed was she was always on her phone. Like before the wedding, she used to give me shit for checking work emails at dinner. But suddenly she's the one hiding her phone under the table and texting nonstop. When I'd walk into the room, she'd quickly flip her phone over or switch apps. But my dumb ass just thought she was planning some kind of surprise for me or something. Then she started staying late at the wildlife center all the time. Now, for context, yeah, she'd had late nights before when they'd get emergency cases, but this was different. She'd tell me there was an injured eagle or something that needed overnight monitoring, but her stories started having holes. Like one night she said she had to stay late for a hurt fox, but I saw on the center's Instagram that they'd already released that fox that morning. Still didn't want to believe what was obviously happening. I was crazy busy with work during all this. Had this huge project designing a 50-story building downtown that was causing all kinds of structural challenges. The worst part? It was for Ryan's hospital. They were expanding their trauma center, and my firm landed the contract. That's probably how Olivia knew he was back. She saw the project plans at our place one night when she was over with Emma. Then her bestie Olivia started showing up at our place more often. Now let me tell you about Olivia, 32 female. This chick has been divorced twice before 30, has a new boyfriend every month, and loves stirring up drama. She's got that, "if you can't handle me at my worst" quote as her Instagram bio, if that tells you anything. Emma and her got close at work. Olivia's a receptionist at the wildlife center, and I never liked her but kept my mouth shut. But something about her always bothered me. But I couldn't put my finger on it until later. Found out through James that she'd actually tried to get my number when I first started coming to the wildlife center about the hawk situation. Apparently she'd been pretty interested, but I was already focused on Emma. Should have realized sooner how bitter she was about that whole thing. But I never mentioned that to Emma. I'd overhear them whispering and giggling in the kitchen, but they'd go quiet as soon as I walked in. Once I heard Olivia say something like, "You deserve to be happy, and you can't help how you feel," but I tried to ignore it. Looking back, Olivia was basically pouring poison in Emma's ear 24/7. I remember the exact morning everything fell apart. I was in my home office reviewing these complicated foundation plans. Had been up since 5 a.m. trying to figure this shit out. Emma comes in looking like she hadn't slept, still in her PJs even though it was like 11 a.m. She sits down on the couch in my office and starts crying. Not like normal crying, but that ugly crying where you can barely understand what someone's saying. I'm thinking someone died or something. Turns out Olivia had convinced her to meet up with her ex Ryan a few days ago. Apparently they'd been texting for weeks before that. Ryan wasn't just any ex, he was her college sweetheart. The guy she dated for 4 years before he left to join Doctors Without Borders in Africa. Now he's back in town, working as some hotshot trauma surgeon at the local hospital. And this piece of work actually told Emma he'd made a huge mistake leaving her and still had feelings for her. And instead of telling him to fuck off like any normal married person would, Emma's there crying about how confused she is and how she needs to figure things out. She actually sat there and tried to explain to me how Olivia helped her realize she had unresolved feelings that she needed to explore. Said she owed it to herself to figure out if she still had feelings for Ryan before fully committing to our marriage. I'm sitting there like that. We're already married? The thank you cards from our wedding weren't even sent out yet, FS. You want to know the most fucked up part? She tried to make it sound like she was doing me a favor. Said something like, "I need to be sure about us so we don't end up divorced in 5 years when we have kids." I just sat there staring at her, probably looking like an idiot with my mouth hanging open. Looking back, Olivia's whole plan was pretty obvious. She is the one who first accidentally mentioned to Emma that Ryan was back in town, working at the hospital. Started casually bringing him up in conversation, showing Emma his social media posts about being back from Africa. Classic manipulation, but Emma fell for it completely. But here's where shit gets real. Instead of doing what she probably expected, begging her to stay, crying, promising to be a better husband or whatever, I just started laughing. Not like happy laughter, but that kind of laugh you do when something is so fucked up it's almost funny. She looks at me like I'm having a mental breakdown. Maybe I was TBH. Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened my laptop, Googled best divorce lawyers in our city, and started making calls right there in front of her. Emma completely freaked out. "What are you doing?" I said I needed time to think, not that I wanted a divorce. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No, what you need is to get the fuck out of my house." Not my proudest moment, but hey, I was running on like 2 hours of sleep and my whole life was imploding. She starts crying harder, saying I'm being unfair, that I don't understand how complicated this is for her. Then she hits me with this bullshit. Ryan was my first love. I need to know if there's still something there. I'll always wonder what if I don't explore this. That's when I lost it. Told her, "You know what's not complicated? Marriage vows. You either meant them or you didn't. And clearly you didn't." Then she tried to turn it around on me. Said I was being controlling and unsupportive by not letting her figure out her feelings. Said Olivia told her that any man who truly loved her would understand and give her space to figure things out. BTW, fuck Olivia, seriously. I pulled up our wedding video on my phone. Literally had to scroll past hundreds of honeymoon pics to find it. Made her watch the part where she promised to forsake all others. Asked her if she was lying then, or just lying now. She got real quiet after that. Then tried a different approach. Said maybe couples counseling would help. That we could work through this together. I told her the only thing I needed to work through was finding a good lawyer. Then she dropped the bomb that really showed what kind of person she is. She says, Ryan's just coming off a 36-hour shift at the hospital. He said I could come stay with him while we figure this out. She already had bags packed in her car. Turns out she'd been planning this for days. Had already moved some of her stuff to his place. While I was working my ass off on this huge project, she was literally planning her exit strategy with her ex. Cool, cool, cool. I wish I could say I kept my cool, but nah. Started going through our wedding gifts, most still unopened, and literally making two piles. Shit she's not getting, and shit she can have. Real mature, I know. Then I called my buddy Kyle, the one in Dubai, and he got on the first flight back. True bro move. Emma tried to say I was being dramatic getting him involved. I reminded her she's the one who got her ex and toxic bestie involved in our marriage, so maybe sit this one out. The next few hours were a blur. Emma kept switching between crying, trying to explain herself, and getting mad at me for not being understanding. Like? Understanding of what exactly? That my wife's getting ready to cheat on me with her ex and wants my permission? The whole time she kept saying shit like, I still love you, and this doesn't mean I don't care about you. And my personal favorite, you'll always be special to me. Like she was breaking up with a high school boyfriend and not her husband of 2 weeks. I finally told her she had two choices. Either cut all contact with Ryan immediately, and we maybe try to work through this, or leave right now, and we're done forever. She literally said, why does it have to be so black and white? That's when I knew it was over. Told her to get out and not come back. She tried to hug me before leaving. The fucking audacity. And I just walked away. The sound of her car driving off is still stuck in my head. Watched her pull away from our dream house, probably heading straight to Ryan's place, while our wedding cards were still sitting on the kitchen counter. Spent that night getting blackout drunk with Kyle on our back patio. He'd landed by then. Deleted all my social media because I couldn't handle seeing her face. Called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. So I'm hungover of the morning after Emma left, sitting on my couch with Kyle trying to figure out WTF to do next when someone starts pounding on my front door, like aggressive cop-style knocking. I'm thinking maybe Emma came back to get more of her stuff, but nope, it's her dad Mike. Now let me tell you about Mike. Dude's about 6 feet 4 inches, covered in military tattoos, looks like he could snap me in half. Ex-Marine who now runs this super successful security company. He'd always been cool with me, but seeing him on my doorstep that morning had me shitting bricks. I opened the door expecting him to punch me or something. Honestly, wouldn't have blamed him. His daughter probably told him some BS story about me being an asshole. Instead, this big scary dude just looks at me and says, my daughter's a fucking idiot. Got any coffee? Turns out Emma had called her mom crying about how I was being unreasonable and cruel by not supporting her need to explore things with Ryan. Her mom bought it. They've always been super close. But Mike wasn't having any of it. We sit in my kitchen, me, Kyle, and Mike, drinking coffee and Jack Daniels. Mike starts telling us how he never liked Ryan back in college. Said something always seemed off about him. Then he drops this bomb. Ryan had actually cheated on Emma back then, before the whole Doctors Without Borders thing. Emma never knew. Her friend had told Mike, but they decided not to tell her because she was too fragile at the time. So now I'm sitting there realizing my wife left me for a guy who cheated on her years ago, and she doesn't even know it. You can't make this shit up. Mike was actually the one who recommended my divorce lawyer. Turns out he'd used the same guy for a business dispute. He also offered to have some of his security company guys talk to Ryan, but I turned that down LOL. Tempting though. The next few days were a mess. I had to call my boss and explain why I needed time off from the skyscraper project. Dude was actually super understanding. Turns out his first wife had done something similar. He gave me 2 weeks paid leave and said the project would still be there when I got back. The worst part was dealing with all our shared stuff. Our house looked like a fucking wedding threw up in it. Gifts everywhere, cards, photos. Found our marriage certificate in a pile of mail and had a legit breakdown. Emma's little brother James, who works at my firm as a junior engineer, came by to get some of her stuff. Poor kid was caught in the middle. Told me Emma was staying at Ryan's place and acting like a completely different person. Said she was posting all these weird quotes on Instagram about following your heart and finding your true path. The family dynamics got real messy real quick. Emma's mom was fully Team Emma, yapping stuff like, you need to give her space to figure things out, and marriage is about understanding and patience. Meanwhile, Mike and James were on my side, which caused some huge fights at their house. Then Olivia started running her mouth at the wildlife center, telling everyone Emma left me because I was emotionally unavailable and working too much. Several of Emma's coworkers, who I thought were our friends, started unfollowing me on social media. Real mature. But here's where karma started kicking in. Remember that huge project I was working on? Turns out Ryan's hospital was one of our clients. I called my boss and explained the situation. He immediately requested a different project manager take over cause of the personal conflict. Ryan apparently threw a fit when he found out he'd have to deal with delays cause of the switch. The financial shit was a nightmare. We had just combined our bank accounts after the wedding. Had to freeze everything and start untangling our money. Thank God we hadn't bought a house yet. We're still saving up for a down payment. The only real asset we had was my condo that I'd bought before meeting her. Emma tried calling me a few times during all this. Left these long, rambling voicemails about how she still cares about me and hopes we can be friends someday. Like, yeah, sure. Let me pencil that in right after I finish burning all our wedding photos. Her dad kept me updated on what was happening on their end. Apparently, Emma and Ryan were playing happy couple all over town, going to fancy restaurants, posting cute pics together, acting like she hadn't just blown up her marriage for this BS. The worst part? Found out they'd been texting before our wedding. James discovered it by accident. He was helping Emma set up her new work iPad, and it synced with her old messages through the family cloud account. He saw the texts from Ryan going back months. Some of them were from the week before our wedding. My own brother-in-law had to be the one to tell me. That's when I decided to let go and focus on myself. I threw myself back into work. Remember that skyscraper project I was working on? Turned out all those late nights at the office while Emma was figuring out her feelings paid off. My design actually saved the client millions in foundation costs. Boss was so impressed he fast-tracked my promotion to senior project lead. Meanwhile, Emma's whole finding herself fantasy started falling apart. James, her brother, kept me in the loop because we still worked together. Apparently living with Ryan wasn't the romantic dream she imagined. Dude's a workaholic. Ironic given her complaints about my hours. Leaves his dirty scrubs everywhere and still acts like a college frat boy with his doctor buddies. Katie from the Wildlife Center finally told me what had been going on. Turns out Olivia had been playing both sides the whole time. She'd been telling Emma that Ryan was her true love, while simultaneously fishing for information about him. The whole time she was pushing Emma to leave me, she was laying groundwork to go after Ryan herself. Real piece of work. She wanted Emma to feel the pain she felt when I took Emma instead of her. Emma caught them having lunch together a few times. When she confronted Olivia about it, that snake actually said, "Well, you were married when you started talking to Ryan, so what's the difference?" LMAO, the karma is chef's kiss. Then something interesting happened. Katie, one of the senior vets at the Wildlife Center, reached out to me. She'd been Emma's mentor when she first started there, and she was disgusted by how everything went down. Katie had seen firsthand how much overtime I put in to pay for the wedding, and she couldn't stand hearing Emma tell everyone I was controlling and worked too much. Katie became my eyes and ears at the center. She sent me a screenshot of Emma crying in the break room because Ryan had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Like, you left your husband for this dude, and you're crying about a 1-month anniversary? Make it make sense. One of them, Katie, changed her name for privacy, sent me screenshots of Emma crying in the break room because Ryan had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Like, you left your husband for this dude, and you're crying about a 1-month anniversary? Make it make sense. The real turning point came when James told me I needed to hear something. He'd seen Emma at their parents' house when he went to pick up some stuff. Said she looked completely different from the sister he knew, wearing all this fancy designer stuff. Apparently Ryan makes good money, but looking tired. Sad. She tried to hug me, what TF, and I just stepped back. Asked her how her journey of self-discovery was going. She started crying, saying she missed me, missed our life together. Said Ryan wasn't who she thought he was. You know what I did? Laughed. This is hilarious. Laughing. Told her I had a meeting to get to. I didn't. And walked away. The old me would have tried to comfort her. Maybe even considered taking her back. New me just got a protein shake and crushed my deadlift PR that night. Then I got a call from a headhunter about this massive project in Singapore. They'd heard about my foundation design solutions and wanted me to lead their new eco-friendly skyscraper development. 2-year contract, 7 figures, full relocation package. I took it without hesitating. When the news got around, 'cause people talk, Emma showed up at my office. She was hysterical, saying I couldn't leave, that she was confused about her feelings, that maybe she'd made a mistake. I just looked at her and said, "That sounds like a you problem," and went back to my blueprints. The look on her face was priceless. Apparently, one of Ryan's coworkers saw Emma crying in my office and told him about it. Ryan, being the insecure man-child he is, completely lost his shit. Started blowing up Emma's phone, demanding to know why she was talking to me. Mind you, this is the same dude who had no problem texting my wife before our wedding. But sure, bro, go off. Here's where it gets good, though. While Ryan's having his little meltdown about Emma talking to me, guess who was blowing up his phone? Yep, Olivia. Turns out they'd been having lunch together pretty regularly. And by lunch, I mean meeting up in his office when Emma was at work. How do I know this? Steve, the project manager who took over the hospital contract after I stepped away, saw them together constantly during site meetings. Being a decent guy, he kept me in the loop, sent me photos of them looking pretty cozy during what were supposed to be professional consultations. The same girl who helped Emma blow up our marriage was making moves on her new man. You literally can't make this shit up. How do I know all this? Because my firm was still handling the hospital project, just with a different team. One of the project managers, Steve, saw Ryan and Olivia together all the time during site meetings. He felt guilty about the whole situation, especially after seeing how it affected the project timeline. Started keeping me in the loop about what was happening. Emma found out about it during some fancy dinner she'd planned for Ryan's birthday. She'd spent like a week planning it, cooking his favorite food. She never cooked for me, BTW. Bought him some expensive watch. Then right in the middle of dinner, Olivia drunk texts Ryan saying she misses their lunch meetings and hopes Emma doesn't check his second phone. Second phone. This dude had a whole-ass second phone for texting Olivia. Real classy. Emma apparently lost it. Stormed out of their apartment at like 11 p.m. Tried calling her mom, but she was on a cruise. Called her dad, but he basically told her, "You made your bed, lie in it." Called her brother James, but he was working late at our firm. On my team now. Got him promoted last week. Guess who she ended up calling? M.E. at midnight. Crying about how Ryan was just like all other men, and how she made a huge mistake, and how she never should have left. I let it go to voicemail. Sent that shit straight to my lawyer, though. The next day was pure chaos at the Wildlife Center. Emma showed up to work to find Olivia acting like nothing happened. They had this massive screaming match in the break room. Katie, bless her, had the presence of mind to record the whole thing on her phone. She sent it to me right after, knowing I'd need it for the divorce proceedings. The best part? In the middle of their fight, Ryan shows up trying to explain. Says he and Olivia were just friends, and Emma was overreacting. Then Olivia, this absolute snake, looks Emma dead in the eyes and says, "At least I waited until he was single," unlike some people. The Wildlife Center actually had to call security. Emma and Olivia both got written up. Ryan got escorted out. It was beautiful chaos. It was like the universe wanted me to know everything. James kept me updated from the family side, Mike from the parent side, Steve from the hospital project side, and Katie from the Wildlife Center. Everyone could see what a mess Emma had made, and nobody was letting her rewrite the story. Meanwhile, I'm at my office finalizing my Singapore contract, getting ready to piece out of this entire situation. The company's even paying for Kyle to come work with me. Gave him a senior engineering position because he's actually brilliant when he's not babysitting my drunk ass. Emma tried damage control. Sent me this long-ass email about how she sees things clearly now and realizes what she threw away. Said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. Said Ryan was just a fantasy and reality hit her hard. My response? Cool story. Please direct all future communication to my lawyer. Then she tried getting her family involved. Her mom finally got back from the cruise and showed up at my place unannounced. Started going on about how young people make mistakes and true love deserves second chances. Mike, Emma's dad, found out and was pissed. Came and got her, but not before telling me he's still coming to Singapore to visit once I'm settled. Legend. Found out through James that Emma moved back in with her parents. Ryan's apparently already dating some nurse from pediatrics. Olivia got fired from the Wildlife Center for creating a hostile work environment. Took them long enough. So my firm decided to throw this huge farewell party for me last Friday. They rented out this fancy rooftop bar downtown. Invited basically everyone from the company, plus some clients. James, Emma's brother who works with me, helped plan it. He specifically didn't tell his family about it, cause, obvious reasons. But somehow Emma found out anyway. Pretty sure Olivia told her cause she's still friends with one of our receptionists. The party was actually going great at first. All my work friends were there. Even some of my college buddies showed up. I was feeling good, Got my Singapore visa approved that morning. My new place there is all set up, and I'm in the best shape of my life thanks to all that post-breakup gym time. Then around 10 p.m., guess who shows up? Emma. But wait, it gets better. She shows up in the dress. You know, the one she wore on our first date that I always said was the moment I fell in love with her. She'd kept it all these years and decided this was the moment to bring it out again. She clearly planned this whole dramatic entrance thing. Showed up right when people were doing speeches, probably thinking it would be some romantic movie moment. Instead, security stopped her at the door, because she wasn't on the list. I actually didn't even notice at first because I was talking to this really cool architect from the Singapore firm. James comes running up to me like, "Dude, Emma's here and she's making a scene." Go out to the lobby and there's Emma, crying and trying to convince security to let her in. She sees me and just starts going off about how she made a horrible mistake and Ryan meant nothing, and how she wants to come to Singapore with me. Mind you, this is happening in front of like half my coworkers who came out to watch the drama. Emma's mascara is running everywhere. She's had clearly been drinking, and she's wearing this dress that doesn't even fit her right anymore because she lost weight from all the stress of her own dumb decisions. Then she drops this bomb. She'd actually bought a ticket to Singapore, like a real plane ticket for next week. Had this whole plan about showing up at my new place and convincing me to take her back. She thought it was romantic. I thought it was straight up stalker behavior. I just looked at her and said, "You need help. Professional help." Then I went back inside to enjoy my party. But Emma wasn't done. She tried to follow me in. Security grabbed her, and she starts screaming about how I never really loved her, because if I did, I would forgive her one mistake. That's when Kyle stepped in. He just looks at her and goes, "One mistake? You mean like texting your ex before the wedding? Or moving in with him 2 weeks after? Those mistakes?" Emma goes dead quiet. Then she starts crying harder. Didn't think that was possible, and saying how she was just confused and scared, and Ryan manipulated her. Here's the best part. While this is happening, guess who walks by the building? Ryan. With the pediatric nurse he's apparently dating now. He sees Emma having a meltdown in her old dress, looks super uncomfortable and just keeps walking. Doesn't even acknowledge her. The look on Emma's face when she saw them together almost felt bad for her. Security finally convinced her to leave, but not before she tried to hand me this letter she'd written. I didn't take it. She left it on the ground and Kyle picked it up after she left. We read it later that night when we were drunk and holy shit, it was pages of her basically rewriting our entire relationship history to make herself the victim. The party actually got way better after she left. Everyone was buying me drinks, telling me I dodged a bullet. The architect from Singapore, let's call her Sarah because irony is fun, gave me her number. Said she'd show me around when I get there. Found out later that Emma went to Ryan's place after leaving the party. Nurse girl answered the door. That did not go well, apparently. Last I heard, Emma's in therapy now. Good for her, I guess. Too little too late, though. A couple of days ago, I got ready to head to the airport. I had everything packed, said goodbye to my parents, got my place ready for the renters, was feeling pretty good about everything. Then Emma pulled her final stunt. Quick backstory. I had a 6 a.m. flight to Singapore. Connection in Dubai where Kyle lives. My parents and James were going to drive me to the airport. Simple plan, right? Emma had other ideas. Get to the airport at like 4 a.m. and guess who's waiting at the fucking check-in counter? Emma. With luggage. This girl really thought she was going to pull some romantic comedy airport scene bullshit. She'd bought a ticket to Dubai. Not even Singapore, just Dubai. Because that's all she could afford, I guess. And was planning to, convince me to take her back mid-flight? Follow me to Singapore? Honestly, still not sure what her plan was. The best part? She brought her dad, Mike, thinking he'd help convince me. But Mike, absolute legend that he is, was actually there to stop her. He'd found out about her plan from James and came to drag her ass home if needed. Emma sees me and starts with this rehearsed speech about how love means fighting for what matters and how she won't let me go without trying one last time. Meanwhile, Mike's standing behind her, looking like he wants to disown her. Can't blame him. Then she pulls out this photo album. It's full of pictures from our relationship, our wedding, everything. Must have spent days putting it together. She actually thought this would change my mind, like I'd see some old photos and forget about her destroying our marriage. I just walked around her to check in. She starts crying and saying she'll prove her love by following me to Singapore if she has to. That's when Mike finally stepped in. He grabs her suitcase and goes, "The only place you're following anyone is back home. You're embarrassing yourself, and more importantly, you're embarrassing me." Never seen Emma shut up so fast. While this is happening, Guess who's at the airport? Sarah, the architect from Singapore, was on my flight because she'd been in town for the project handover. She walks up, gives me this big hug, and asks if I'm ready for our dinner plans in Singapore later this week. The look on Emma's face? Priceless. Think her brain short-circuited trying to process that I was actually moving on. She starts this weird laugh-crying thing and says, "You're already dating? I thought what we had was special." I finally had enough and said something I'd been wanting to say for months. What we had was special. And you traded it for a fantasy with a guy who's already moved on to someone else. That's on you, not me. Mike practically had to drag her out of the airport. Last thing I heard was her crying about how I was being cruel by moving on. The irony of that statement, just wow. The flight was actually amazing. Got bumped to first class, had some drinks with Sarah, talked about architecture and life. Turns out we have a lot in common. She's brilliant, driven, and most importantly, single. We're having dinner tomorrow. Landed in Singapore a few hours ago. My new place is insane. View of the whole city. Private pool. Just got a text from Mike. Emma's finally agreed to get serious about therapy. She moved back home, quit her job at the wildlife center, too much drama with Olivia still hanging around, and is apparently working on herself. Good for her, I guess. Ryan? Last I heard he's engaged to the nurse. It's been like 2 months, but sure, that'll work out great, I'm sure. Olivia got fired from the wildlife center and is now working at some sketchy private zoo. Karma's funny like that. Looking out at the Singapore skyline right now and feeling pretty good about life. Tomorrow I start work on the biggest project of my career. Next weekend I have a date with a gorgeous architect. My best friend and Emma's brother, who's more my brother now TBH, are joining me here soon. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you lead you to the best places. To everyone who followed this crazy story, thanks for the support. Special shout out to everyone who told me to hit the gym and focus on myself. You were right. And Emma, if you're somehow reading this, I know you still check my Reddit even though I made a throwaway. I honestly hope you figure your shit out. But I won't be around to see it. Time to start my new life. Final edit. Stop asking for Sarah's social media. Not gonna happen. Edit 2. Yes, I kept the photo album. Gonna mail it back to Emma's parents. Some memories aren't mine to keep. Edit 3. For everyone asking about prenups. Yeah, learned that lesson the hard way. Already talked to a Singapore lawyer about protecting my assets going forward. Never making that mistake again. Final edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thanks for all the awards, but maybe donate to your local animal shelter instead? At least some good can come from this mess.